This podcast is part of Mishmash Media. Hey, buddy.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Welcome to another episode of Curbcast. My name is Ivan.
And I'm Stephen.
And today we are talking about Season 3, Episode 6, the special section. So we're nearly halfway through, or we're more than halfway through Curb 3 now, bud.
Yeah, on to the second half of the season.
Yeah, and it kicks off with Larry David being in a Martin Scorsese film. He looks pretty swanky in his outfit, doesn't he?
Yeah, it was a strange opening. I didn't really know where it was headed. I thought maybe it was a dream sequence or some sort of weird non sequitur, but it slowly makes sense.
It does. Absolutely. Anyway, a bit of a plot synopsis about today's episode. Aired in the US on October 20th, 2002, Larry is distraught when he learns that his mother died while he was off shooting a movie in New York, and he doesn't learn about the news until 2 days after the funeral. Larry uses the loss to get out of a number of unappealing invitations while plotting to move his mother away from the special section of the cemetery. I've never heard of a special section of a cemetery. Have you heard of anything like that?
I've heard of cemeteries with certain parts cordoned off for certain faiths or when people buy their way into certain areas, but I've never heard of those areas referred to as special sections.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking of the cemetery that my grandmother and grandfather on my mother's side are buried at, and they're in a specific area for Serbian Orthodox people because that was not my grandfather, but I've never heard of what you see in this episode.
But they're obviously not there because they have tattoos on their bums.
Well, not as far as I was aware. I never saw them naked, so I can't say. And I'm not sure if the Orthodox religion, the Serbian Orthodox religion, would frown upon tattoos like Judaism does, which is something I learned in this episode.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, because I was thinking to myself, this is, I don't know, it sounds just really outdated. Like even with mixed marriages and stuff, they put people in there. You know, that's crazy. I was like, hang on, is this real? But yeah, I guess it's really Orthodox.
Yeah, I guess it depends on the individual cemetery and the individual rabbi who runs the cemetery or the cemetery manager. I'm not sure of their actual job title, but I'm sure it's different according to the local Jewish community and the cemetery about how strict they would enforce those rules.
Yeah. Anyway, that's you've told me enough, like a lot more than I expected about it, which is good. That's probably enough knowledge for me regarding those kind of cemeteries. But anyway, mate, let's kick off the episode, shall we? Scene 1. Larry is in New York shooting a Martin Scorsese film, and he's overacting his scene. I love it. Yeah, you want money? Take the money. And he grabs the guy to throw him off the ledge, and Martin just cuts the scene.
Yeah, look, I mean, even though Larry's overacting, it's not that far from some of the roles portrayed in mafia films. It's pretty close.
Yeah, especially with like Goodfellas and even a lot of other Scorsese films. There's always that character or two who are really over the top.
Exactly, yeah. There's the ones who have a temper, who love to control people, love power. And I'm guessing Larry David's character, whatever his name is one of those people. A slightly taller, more Jewish Joe Pesci.
Yeah. Yes, I guess the best way to describe him. Martin cuts the scene and they need to retake it, blaming technical issues. They're discussing how to improve the scene, and Martin wants 2 more takes. Larry says that on Seinfeld that they just did 2 takes and that's it. And Martin, he doesn't even it doesn't even faze him. Cheryl asks what he said to Larry after the take, but he says that he doesn't know. He asks if his dad called as his mother is sick, but Cheryl says that he hasn't called. So he was because he knew that his mother was in hospital and was really sick, so he was probably waiting on his dad to call and tell him what's going on.
Yeah, and I knew immediately that the episode was going to be related to Larry's parents or mother or the phone call. That was going to be a major plot point, and my prediction came true.
Oh, so you expected a death or just something to do with the parents?
Not a death per se, just something related to, the phone call, him being in New York, his mother being unwell. I just knew it was something related to that.
Yeah, I didn't expect death, though. I didn't read the plot synopsis before I watched it. I'm guessing you didn't either?
No, I never do.
No, you just want to go in fresh,
basically,
raw,
yeah,
and curb your enthusiasm. Well, actually, you're not curbing it. You're bringing out your enthusiasm for it.
Well, I'm not encouraging my enthusiasm, but I'm not doing anything to curb my enthusiasm. I'm just going with whatever level of enthusiasm I have before I watch an episode.
Very good, mate. Yeah, that's the way to live life.
Maintaining my enthusiasm.
Maintain your enthusiasm, that's right. In the next scene, they arrive back in LA and they're in the cab heading home. Larry wants to stop by his father's place to check in on them, as they haven't called Larry in days. He arrives at the apartment building and Larry is greeted by his dad. Larry is asking why he hasn't called, and his dad is trying to reflect from from Larry's questions as he's very nervous, or more jumpy than usual, Larry says. He hesitantly tells Larry that she died and says it was her mother's wishes not to tell Larry about her death during his trip. And this scene, for me, establishes like why Larry the way he is, because even his father is like very pedantic and very, a bit odd like Larry. You can see where it comes from.
Yeah, it reminded me of George Costanza inhabiting a lot of the neuroses and dysfunctionality of Frank and Estelle Costanza. Larry's father seems a bit more calm than them, but yeah, the parallels between parents and child were apparent between George and Larry and their respective parents.
Yeah, because it certainly sounds like something even Larry would do. Like if Larry, didn't call anyone about someone's death, like it's certainly something that Larry could do. It just surprised me because I thought maybe Larry was the anomaly in the family. I didn't think his dad would be like him.
Yeah, I mean, I'd never really thought about Larry David's parents because he'd never even talked about them, let alone, us having seen them before this episode. I think maybe he's referred to them once, but I can't remember. I don't think he has. But he just looks a lot more normal than Larry. I mean, Larry doesn't look especially weird, but I guess because Larry's such an odd duck of a man, the father just seems so kind of boring.
Yeah, very boring, and also just very nervous too, especially in these times.
And this was the first time I felt genuinely sorry for Larry. I mean...
me too.
We've discussed many times when we've talked about, whether we think Larry was in the wrong or not, depending on the situation. I've never felt sorry for him. I've always just sort of thought, I don't think Larry's in the wrong, but I've never gone so far as to think, wow, I really feel for Larry in this. It's more just, I don't think Larry did the wrong thing.
No, because his mother died and, his father didn't even call. And what's even worse is the funeral happened 2 days before. The son didn't even come to the funeral because he wasn't even informed of the mother's death. I mean, and look, to be honest, I don't think even Larry would pull a stunt like that. He'd probably, I don't know, I feel like that's probably beneath him. So yeah, I can see why you feel sorry for him.
Yeah, I mean, Larry doesn't really have the same emotional parameters that most people do. He doesn't understand a lot of social norms, especially ones based on, empathy and thoughtfulness. But not informing someone about their parents' funeral, I don't think Larry would even sort of fuck that up. And just, I think what really, it almost disturbed me, or it disarmed me, just the doubling down that Larry's dad did on the reason why he didn't call Larry. He said, your mother told me not to disturb you. And it's like, okay, under normal circumstances, fine, respect that wish. But death is not a normal circumstance.
No, it's not something that happens every day.
No, well, I mean, it happens once, really.
Once per parent. So, exactly.
And just the fact that he's relying on that as an excuse. Well, I didn't tell you because your mother told me not to tell you. And Larry's like, he can't even fathom it. He's like, are you fucking insane? He can't.
I think he's more shocked. Yeah. I think he's more shocked in the fact that, he wasn't told rather than the death. But I guess in the moment he was just in complete shock. He was upset that his dad didn't even tell him about the death, which is absurd.
Yeah, in that moment, I would imagine that it would be hard to know where the shock of not being told ends and the shock of learning about your mother's death starts. It would just be overwhelming, confusing shock, for many reasons.
It would. And anyway, like we've established, Larry is shocked after hearing this. And, I'm going to call Larry's dad for the context of reading the scenes.
Larry Sr.
Oh, Larry Sr. Okay, sure. I'll call him Larry Sr. And Larry Sr. says that that she had her funeral 2 days ago. Larry's cousin Andy arrives and gives his condolences. I remember you mentioned in an old Bibblebasket episode that you weren't sure who Richard Fine was because they talked about Curb Your Enthusiasm, when it was the 20th anniversary a few weeks ago. Richard Fine, he's the guy that plays Andy.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah, it was in a Seinfeld.
I think that's him.
About a month ago during the 20th anniversary article. I think it was The Guardian. Was it The Guardian?
It might have been, yeah. But I think you were wondering who it was.
Yeah, I remember.
I think it was him. I think. Okay. Sorry, no, not Richard Fine. Richard Kind. Sorry, my mistake. Richard Kind. Richard Fine's a totally different dude. I just Googled it. No, that's Richard Kind. Yeah, so there you go. Because we were wondering who that was. But there you go. He comes in early.
Yep.
Into Curb. So hopefully, I'm sure we'll see him many more times. Anyway, Andy arrives to give his condolences. Larry tells him about not knowing about the funeral, as Andy mentions how nice it was, and they talk about the food they had and the people that turned up. And someone wrote, "Sorry for your loss. Where's Larry?" in the book, which is funny. They get into an argument about Larry's frustrations as he's annoyed that Larry didn't call him while he was in New York, because Andy lives in New York as well.
Yeah, and I can't really fault Larry's logic that just because I'm in the same city as you doesn't mean I need to call. I mean, when you talk to a voice on the phone, does it matter where that person actually is? I don't think so.
No, it doesn't. I mean, you don't have to be in the same geographical area to do it. It just doesn't make sense.
And it's not like Larry, lives in a completely different time zone where it would be much more inconvenient to call, his cousin or anyone else. So yeah, Larry's like, who cares? It doesn't. If you're only expecting a call, who cares where I am?
Yeah, it's not like you're going to invite me over for dinner or anything, but I feel like that Larry and Andy aren't that close anyway.
No, you can sense a bit of tension. I mean, Larry seems to have tension with everyone in his life, even his own wife. So it doesn't surprise me that their relationship is fraught. But I imagine that'll be explored more over the forthcoming season and subsequent seasons too.
He's hoping.
So she's feeling better?
No, well, in a way. She did warn me. She said, if anything happens to me, don't bother Larry, because he's in New York. He wants to enjoy. So then, after a day or two, nobody goes on forever and ever and ever. And I'm not going to go on.
She died?
Yeah.
Back at home, Cheryl is telling Larry who called for giving their condolences, and while Cheryl, calls someone about a bat mitzvah that they can't attend because of Larry's mum, Larry comes up with the idea to cancel events that he doesn't want to go to using that excuse. And the scene cuts to Larry starting to cancel undesirable events on the phone using his mother's death as the excuse, like I mentioned. So Larry, he sees Cheryl call about it was a dinner, I think, and they called to cancel the dinner because of the death. And Larry's like, you know what? I'm just going to do that to, avoid other people. I'm just going to say my mum died. That's it.
Yeah, when Cheryl's cancelling the dinner because of the death, if you look at Larry, you can see the cogs turning and you can see, maybe I can use this as an excuse to not do anything. And I mean, it's a reasonable excuse, but Larry's not genuinely calling to say, look, I can't really deal with being social at the moment because of my mother's death. It's purely just convenient for him. It's not a genuine reason he's pulling out. He would, if he didn't think of that as an excuse, didn't cancel that, and he was still going through his mother's death, he could have gone to those social events and functioned perfectly okay, because he doesn't seem too distraught over his mother's death. He just seems to be his dad for not telling him.
Yeah, that's why I said he's more shocked that dad didn't tell him instead of, rather than his mum dying. But I find it interesting how there's wisps of George Costanza in this. I think, this could have been a Seinfeld episode. Not necessarily like Estelle, George's mum, dying, but maybe George found out about a death and, he pretended that he was upset about it just to get stuff his way. I mean, we kind of see that in the episode The Implant, where he goes to Detroit for the funeral and tries using the aunt's death as an excuse to get a discount off his airfare. So I can see that there's probably some influence from that.
Yeah, leveraging off an unfortunate circumstance to one's own advantage is very much a George Costanza thing to do. And
it is.
I can easily see George in place of Larry, and it would be perfectly applicable.
Yeah, absolutely. Larry in the next scene is with Richard Lewis, and he's wondering how Larry landed that film role. Larry says that Martin saw him screaming at the audience at the Improv, and that Martin thought that he was right for the part. And Larry says that was many years ago. It's not like it was recent. I feel like, going back to the first scene, I feel like maybe Martin, he kind of regrets casting Larry for the film role. He's kind of like, oh, he sounded good before, but 10, 15 years later, whatever it is, he's like, oh, God, we really need to work with him and get his scenes right. He's a lot of work.
Look, I'm undecided about whether Martin would have been second-guessing his decision to cast Larry, because Martin Scorsese is known to be a director to reshoot scenes over and over again because he wants it better and better and better. So I'm unsure if the opening scene and Martin requesting that it be redone is just Martin being Martin, or because he's unhappy with Larry's performance so far. It's hard to tell.
Yeah, he's being a bit of a perfectionist then, you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, Martin Scorsese, he's the director that could do basically whatever he wants, and pretty much everyone on set would be perfectly okay with, 50 reshoots, let alone 5 or however many he gets Larry to do.
Stanley Kubrick's 80 to 100 takes per scene. He was famous for, reshooting. It's ridiculous.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people found it frustrating, but it produced results that transcended pretty much every other, filmmaker's sort of standards. So, it's worth it, I guess.
And some actors even went insane from it. Circa the lady from The Shining. She wasn't the same after shooting that movie. I'm sure you've read about it.
No, actually, I don't really care much about horror movies or, all the stuff surrounding them. I've watched The Shining and I know a bit about it, but all the the legend and the stuff that happened around it, I don't really care about.
Fair enough. It's very fascinating. Anyway, but Richard, he tells Larry that he's getting into meditation to help with his anger issues. Larry says that he used to do meditation, and Larry jokingly suggests a mantra for Richard. Lonely. It's so mean.
I was just going to say, I really like this interaction between Larry and Richard. They seem very relaxed, and they seem like a lot of the tension that was evident in season 1 and 2 is kind of not there anymore, at least temporarily. We've commented throughout this season that Richard seems a lot more calm and introspective and almost sad, and you can kind of see it in this. He seems a bit lost. He wants to meditate, doesn't really know how. But it's just nice seeing Larry even though he's giving shit to Richard, it seems just like in good spirits, like how friends just hang a bit of shit on each other every so often.
Yeah.
It's actually a nice break, because usually when Larry interacts with friends, there's always a bit of tension, or it's a bit complicated, or it's just sort of unpleasant. But it's nice seeing seeing them just, Larry at least kind of be people.
Well, we see in a later scene that Richard gets upset about the mantra. We'll explore that when the scene comes, and we'll have a good laugh about it. Yeah.
Being humanity or warmth or genuine connection displayed is bound to be short-lived.
Absolutely. Larry suggests that he use his meditative word, Jaya, as Richard's mantra, and Richard accepts it. A man named Ed that Larry doesn't want to see turns up as Richard leaves, and Ed's talking about some banal, boring stuff that Larry's not interested in, and Larry uses the mum's dead card. He says that my mum just passed away and I need time to think. I need time to gather my thoughts. And Ed's very, very sympathetic to him and says, I'm really sorry. God bless you, and I'll let you go. So Larry's thinking, shit, this mum is dead thing is pretty good. See how far I can go.
Yeah, he realizes that it's a pretty bulletproof way of getting out of almost any situation he doesn't want to be in.
Yeah, and he uses it a couple of times in the episode a bit later on. Larry is at the cemetery to find his mother's gravestone. He speaks to the grave digger, and who says that she got moved to the special section, which we talked about a bit earlier, and he's asked to go to the general management building in the cemetery. Larry is at the building speaking to the cemetery manager about what happened, and he explains that there's, the manager explains that there's a section for unclean, or I guess you could say unclean people who've died, or unclean in their eyes, and that her mother or his mother had a butt tattoo, and that was considered undesirable. Any modification or any needles or whatever on the flesh is considered a sin, and you get sent to the special section. Larry says that he was not called about her death, and that he wants her moved back to her original plot, and the manager says that there's nothing that he can do. So yeah, very, very strict cemetery, this one.
Yeah, and you can tell Larry's a bit distressed. I mean, he's still in shock over not being told about his mother's death, still in shock about missing the funeral, probably in more shock for learning that she's not buried where he thought she was going to be, and he can't really pay his respects. Then he's in more shock that she had a tattoo, and then sort of the fifth level of shock for him is that after all of this, the cemetery manager or rabbi or whoever he is says that, sorry, can't do anything. She had a tattoo, and our religious rules are more important than your personal well-being.
Goodness me. I mean, imagine that. You buy a plot for your parent to get buried in, and then they spot one thing like a butt tattoo and they move her to the special section. But Larry does say, I wasn't called because of what happened with, his dad didn't call him and stuff, and if he was called, he would have sorted all this out. So yeah, he's extremely shocked.
Well, I think even if he was at the funeral, or if he was aware that his mother had died and he flew back quickly from New York, I don't think it would have changed the fact that she would have been buried where she was. I don't think that it's the fact that Larry wasn't there that caused her to be buried there. It's purely the tattoo.
Yeah, that's all it is. That's literally all it is. And we find out in the next scene coming up, why she got the tattoo. Later in that night, Larry is with, I have Dad in the notes, but you said call him Larry Sr., so I'm trying not to say Dad. Larry is with Larry Sr. and Andy talking about what happened at the cemetery. Larry Sr. says that Mum got a tattoo at a parlor on their honeymoon. So there you go. They were walking on the boardwalk and spotted a tattoo parlor, and they thought, why not? Cheryl comes out with appetizers as Andy says that he's had turkey already, which is the main course, and he won't eat it for dinner. He says that there are no good Chinese restaurants in LA, and Larry mocks him for his opinion. What, so you get a country of 1 billion people and they can't send one person to cook in LA? I love that.
It's indicative of the sort of type of relationship they have, where it's just constant sort of, nitpicking of each other's opinions and constant tension.
Yeah, Andy's just dumb too. Just a dumb person.
He's very
ignorant.
Unknowingly rude to Cheryl when he goes, no, I don't want that for dinner, because he had turkey for lunch, and Cheryl's just like, okay. And makes a look at Larry, and Larry's like, So, yeah, he seems like a more boorish Larry. Larry is inappropriate, but he's not dumb.
No.
He knows what social expectations are. He just doesn't understand them, whereas his cousin just is completely unaware.
Yeah, he's just unaware, and he even repeats lines like, in this scene, Larry Sr. says something like, that's disgusting and despicable or whatever, and then they're talking. And then Andy comes in and says something along the lines of, yeah, that was so disgusting and despicable. Like, not those words, I'm just paraphrasing him, but he uses like the same wording that Larry Sr. used and uses it as his thoughts. I mean, you just can't really think for himself.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot going up between his ears.
On upstairs. Yeah, between his ears. No, he's certainly in the bottom of the gene pool, right at the end there, in the shallow end, for sure. Larry beckons them all, both of them over to the sitting area and suggests that his mum's body needs to be moved to her plot, and he suggests that they'll try and pay off the grave digger to have this done. Later in the evening, Richard is meditating with Larry's mantra, Jaya, Jaya. He receives a phone call from Larry, who's in bed. He asks Richard if he can get back his mantra, and Richard calls him an East Indian giver for one wanting it back. I kind of cringed when I heard this one.
Yeah, it's the term Indian giver is not a very nice thing to say, but I did think it was clever in terms of just wordplay, regardless of the feelings around that saying. But just in terms of wordplay, it's it was pretty witty.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I'm sure Richard's used that in a previous bit or something, or he's just smart enough to figure it out in one go.
Yeah, Richard's pretty witty. I mean, most comedians are, they're good at thinking on the spot, so I would just put it down to him thinking of it in the moment.
Yeah. After failing to compromise to do it 50-50, getting the Jaya mantra, Larry uses the dead mother excuse to get the mantra back, and Richard relents, because Richard wasn't told by Larry about the death at the time when Ed turned up. Larry tells Cheryl after the phone call that he spoke with Richard. Cheryl says goodnight, and Larry thinks, to Larry, Cheryl saying goodnight is like an invitation for sex. And Larry thinks that she's up for it. He tries using the excuse again for sex this time, and she succumbs.
Yeah, I think she feels sorry for him, and that, she should have some sympathy sex for him, or some empathy sex. Larry using it to manipulate Cheryl. And look, I think Richard's being a bit precious about the mantra, or the fact that Larry even requests permission to use it, is weird. They can just both use it and they wouldn't even know about each other using it. So that's kind of odd to me. One thing I wanted to ask you, I didn't really get, I got it, but it was just an odd choice of scripting and an odd thought that Richard had was when he goes, it sounds kind of gay, us sharing the mantra. It's just, and Larry goes, no, there's nothing homosexual about it, or something like that. It's just sharing a mantra. How is that gay? Like two men sharing something? It's like
it's probably some homophobic ideas that Richard had. It's probably just I guess it's like two men being close and sharing something, whether it's physical or not. It's probably seen as gay. I don't know. I don't understand the thought process.
Yeah, it was just a strange. I just didn't expect that. I mean, Curb Your Enthusiasm always throws curveballs, but that was just where did that come from?
It's probably just like early 2000s, late 90s kind of humor. Saying this is gay. It's just gay, insinuating that it's bad. Not that there's anything wrong with that, of course. But anyway, in the next scene, Larry spots the gravedigger and tries to bribe him. He takes the money and he asks Larry to meet him at the grave at 8 p.m. that night, and he tells him to bring some friends. And Larry says, why do I need to bring friends? And then he goes, bring them to dig. Yeah, so the gravekeeper, he sounds like he's been doing this, the gravedigger rather has been doing this for a while. He's able to sneak a couple of bribes here and there.
Yeah, I'm sure he has a decent little side gig or a second cash income. He doesn't seem too fazed by Larry coming up to him and saying, look, if I give you some cash, can you help me out?
Yeah.
I would assume that he's done it many, many times before.
Yeah, well, I probably wouldn't say many, but I'm sure he's done it like when someone's asked him to do it. He's probably just done it, especially in the special section. There's probably been a lot of families with, contending that their relative shouldn't be in the special section, so he's done it before.
Whether he's done it a lot or a little, he's done it enough to not be in any way uncomfortable with it. He just seems to take stride and knows what to do. So
yeah, he's probably had like crooked policemen, police officers saying, dig up this body for me. I know I need a warrant, but I need it. I need some evidence. I'm sure he's done shit like that.
Yeah, I'm sure all sorts of people have come to him for his services.
Supposedly good and supposedly bad people. Later that evening, Jeff, Andy, Larry Sr. and Larry meet the gravedigger. He gives them shovels because he only has 4 of them, and he sits back to watch them. A musical montage of them digging up the grave occurs with arguments along the way. So you don't hear them arguing, but you hear the music in the background as they're digging.
I like how the gravedigger, when Larry goes, hang on, why, where's your shovel, or why aren't you digging? And he goes, well, I only had 4 shovels. And then he walks away, and Larry just goes, asshole. And then
asshole, yeah, I know.
You've just roped 3 of your family members in and paid off a cemetery groundsman to dig up your own mother. Understandably, I understand why he wants to do it, but it's like, you can't do that and then call someone else an asshole.
No.
Be hypocritical there, Larry.
I don't know. The grave digger's, putting his job on the line, and, he could possibly be charged if he's ever caught. I like how, because, obviously digging a hole or digging up a grave would take a long time. I appreciate that they did like a musical montage to bring the scene over, like to bring the scene forward quickly, because it would have been so boring if they were digging and they were talking. I think it could just would have really dragged on. So I appreciate that they sped that along.
Yeah, no, a montage was a good production choice.
And you don't even need to hear them speak. You just see like their body language and what they're saying. You can lip read what Larry says. He says to Jeff, go fuck yourself. You can see his lips saying those words right at the end. And then the scene cuts to Larry having a shower back at home. Larry is back at home meditating with his mantra the same night as he receives a knock on the door. Richard pops in. What? Not even a phone call? Just a pop in? Just a pop in. Richard enters as he confronts Larry about the mantra, and he finds out from a yoga instructor what it means. Jaya apparently means fuck me. Fuck me. Larry, fuck
you.
you. So he's really pissed as Richard leaves. He's upset because he's like, I've got this mantra to calm me down, but Larry basically told me to go fuck myself.
Well, Larry didn't know.
No, I don't. Yeah, he didn't know, but that's what Richard's thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, no, Richard thinks that Larry set him up, but, I think Larry genuinely didn't know. He just heard it or made it up or whatever, not knowing that it actually meant something not very calming at all.
I tried Googling Jaya and what it meant, but the only things I saw were like Reddit posts about Curb from like 5 years ago talking about it. But no, I don't think it's actually like a word. I've checked like the Hindi dictionary on Google and everything, but no, I couldn't find anything for Jaya.
No, it sounds like they just made it up for the episode.
The closest I could find was Chaya, and that's actually tea in Hindi, like chai. So that's the best I could find. Yeah, it's probably just like a made-up word.
I think they just, made up some words that kind of sounded, South Asian or Indian or whatever, and just went with it.
If you are South Asian or, you're from India or Sri Lanka or, in those parts of the world, let us know. Is Jaya a real word? Get in touch. I'd be really curious. Because I looked everywhere, couldn't find it.
It could be real, but just very obscure, or it could be a mistranslation of something, or who knows?
Who knows? We'll find out if you get in touch with us. That'd be great.
Happy?
I don't know what you're talking about.
The mantra that you so nicely lent to me, that I said maybe 400,000 times.
Jaya? What?
I found out what it meant from some chick who does this meditation stuff.
What does it mean?
Well, you can take Jaya and take that mantra and shove it up your ass. You know what it means?
No, what does it mean?
Fuck me. Fuck me. Fuck you.
In the final scene, Larry and Cheryl are having breakfast on their deck. Police officers enter looking for Larry, and the gravedigger is there, and he points at Larry saying, that's the guy. And we're thinking in this moment, we're like, don't tell me the gravedigger's ratted Larry out, charging him for, tampering with a dead body or whatever the charge is. I mean, like, that would have been like a really shitty thing to do. And I think it would have been a really sour note to finish on the episode from. I think, like, Larry's gone through a lot with his mother's death and stuff. I think it would have been really, really savage if Larry got arrested for digging graves. But he's not actually arrested for that. He's told that the money that he was given, he gave to the gravedigger, is actually a prop from the Scorsese film that he did. He actually kept the wad of notes and he didn't know.
Yeah, he's arrested for using forged currency. So
yeah, that makes it a bit funnier.
Yeah, it's a good, another Curb Your Enthusiasm sort of misdirect where you think, oh wow, he's being arrested for digging up a body, but he's actually being arrested for something much less serious.
Yeah, but like I said, I'm glad they went with that because I think it would have been really shit if the gravedigger's like, oh, that guy dug up bodies, I saw him, and that would have been a really, really dodgy thing. And I think it wouldn't have really fit the mold of Curb too much because Curb, it's meant to be funny. Like, some things happen and it can be dark or disturbing or whatever, but it's funny. I think it would have really been really sour. But I'm glad they went with the counterfeit money and it's prop money from the film that he did with Martin Scorsese. So it's fun. Larry didn't even notice that they were prop notes. He just gave him the money. So good.
Yeah. And it kind of, even though Larry gets, we don't know if he gets arrested or just taken in for questioning, but, if this were to happen in real life, I could imagine Larry just being taken down to the police station and, once he's explained what had happened, he would have to think of a reason why he gave a bunch of cash to a groundsman without revealing the fact that he dug up a grave. But once the police understand that it was just a mistake by Larry and he used a prop instead of real currency, they would have let him go.
Yeah, because with episode 7, the corpse sniffing dog, the next one we're going to do next week, there's actually no mention of his arrest or anything like that. So yeah, it's probably implied that he went to the station and explained his story.
Yeah, and they let him go.
Yeah.
Maybe he bribed the cops with phony money too.
And they took it. They thought it was real. But anyway, that was the special section, episode 6 of season 3 of Curb. Stephen, out of 5 Larrys, what do you give this one this week?
I give this one 3.5 Larrys.
Okay, 3 for me.
Okay. The episode didn't make me laugh a whole lot, but what I did like about it was just the extremes it went to. I think this shows Larry at his most sympathetic. And when I say sympathetic, I mean, as a viewer, you're able to sympathize with him. Larry seems in this episode like the victim. All throughout, even though he, uses the excuse of his mother's death to get out of things and manipulate Cheryl into sex. Overall, he's the one that's sort of on the rough end of the stick throughout most of the episode. And also the fact his whole family, his immediate family getting involved in grave digging, I think is the darkest, kind of most fucked up twisted territory the show's gone so far. I mean, and it's gone to places, you know. I mean, you've got poisoning someone who's religious, even though it was with throat medicine. You know, you've got commenting on the size of your business partner's son's penis. You know, they've gone to some pretty fucked up places, but digging up your own mother's grave and roping a bunch of people into it is probably for me personally, is probably the most twisted territory they've gone into. So the fact that they're pushing boundaries already, you know, usually it takes most shows sort of start to do that after like 5 or 6 seasons because they start to get a bit tired. But the fact that they're already sort of challenging themselves and willing to go to places halfway through only the 3rd season is something I respect.
Yeah, it's very daring. You know, I appreciated that they did go that way. But like you, I didn't get as many laughs for this one. I mean, there were some, you know, tender moments, especially with Larry finding out his mum died and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. It probably could have been written a bit better. It could have been more funny bits. But yeah, overall, yeah, it was okay.
Yeah, it was fine. I mean, it was, you know, a decent episode. Not much in the way of, you know, one thing we've commented on a lot this season is the writers are really confident in their abilities. They're really taking Larry and the show to sort of new places. And other than the darker territory in this episode, it felt a bit safer.
Yeah, it did. But anyway, you can't have everyone going, you know, off to different tangents. You can have a safe one once in a while.
That's it.
Anyway, that was Curbcast. Thank you so much for listening. Next week, we're doing episode 7 of season 3, The Corpse Sniffing Dog. For me, a much funnier episode than the one that we just did, mate.
Yeah, no, I really like this one. I've watched it already.
Me too.
I thought that this one was a good step back into form.
It was, for sure, especially because Jeff is there and Susie and all your old favourites, they're there.
Yeah, I mean, I did like, one thing I did mention when we were talking about what we thought of the episode, I did like the fact that they introduced a couple of new secondary characters who I'm assuming will become more mainstays, you know, Larry's dad and cousin.
Yes.
Next week's episode, The Corpse Sniffing Dog, felt a bit more familiar because it has, it had the classic cast there.
And the restaurant, like there's more updates about the restaurant, the storyline continues, so we'll find out more about that. But anyway, you can follow us on social media. All the links are in the show notes. You can reach out to us via email if you want to say hello and give us feedback or whatever. Curbcastpod, that's one word, @gmail.com. And thanks again. And my name's Ivan.
And I'm Stephen.
And we'll catch you next week for another episode of Curbcast. Take care of yourselves and each other. Thanks for listening. This podcast is part of Mishmash Media, an independent podcast network. Follow us on social media @Mishmash Media AU or support us on Patreon. All those links are in the show notes.